DLC.
That's a fair point. All right. Well, the game that Christian and I have in common, I don't know what brought you to play it, but I saw the social media post from Steven Totillo, who was like, play this game. Don't go in knowing anything. And whenever anybody says don't go in knowing anything, my ears perk up already. I love. Ooh, it's a kind of a surprise.
So sorry, listeners, we're going to ruin that experience for you.
Well, yeah, I haven't even said the name of the game yet, and so I'm giving people a heads up if you want to do that. I think that sets a different kind of expectation than this game pays off. In particular, I think it's a perfectly fine way for him to describe this, but I don't know if I would use it to describe it. I don't know if you would agree, but I also got a text from our friend of the show, Danish Syed, who's like, "Hey, have you played this game yet?" The game is called Animal Well, and it's kind of burning up the indie scene right now itself, getting a lot of buzz. And I don't know how you feel, Christian, but I think this buzz is entirely justified. I think this game is incredible. Incredible. I am instantly shot to the top of my favorite games of the year list. I am hooked on this game. In fact, it's running on my computer in the background right now.
That explains a lot, Jeff.
I've gotten to a place where I can't get to a save point and I'm totally stuck, and I've gotten far enough that I don't want to lose my progress, and I feel like I'm 8 years old again and I'm leaving the NES on and turning the television off because I don't know, I can't save it.
Steam Deck.
Yeah, I know. I'm not playing it on Steam Deck. I was playing it on my computer. Anyway, this game's called Animal Well, and it's made by one person, which I think is just an extraordinary thing because it is revolutionary in a whole number of ways, not least of which is how it looks. Incredibly beautiful pixel art, but not in a way that you've ever seen before. The game moves and shimmers and the first time you get an item in this game and you set it off, it is an extraordinary visual treat. And the game does, it's this marriage between very kind of old school aesthetic. In fact, it defaults to having scan lines. You can switch it off, but it'll have scan lines on your screen. And so it's got this very old school line art aesthetic, kind of pastels or neon look to it. But then it will use very modern special effects to augment that, to mess with lighting, and it's just utterly gorgeous. How to describe Animal Well, Christian? I'm curious what you think of it. But I've heard people describe it as a Metroidvania, which I love as a term, because this is a game that is ostensibly a Metroidvania in that you have a big open 2D map that you're going to unlock and you're going to go back and forth, and there's certain areas you're not going to be able to get to yet, but it's very non-linear and you can go lots of different places. But rather than like with Castlevania or Metroid, the key way of interacting with the environment is by defeating enemies and then figuring out where to go next. The key way of, not that to say there isn't any enemies in Animal Well, because there are, but the key method of interacting with it is figuring things out, is puzzle solving. And the puzzles are just magic. I mean, there's lots of platforming, there's lots of other stuff. I'll let you talk, but I am completely in a week where I finally got my hands on Hades 2. This is the game that I find myself coming back to even more often. So tell me about what you think of Animal Well.
I'd call it animal crap because no, just kidding. It's fantastic. It's such an incredible game. And I feel the exact same way. I was like, Hades 2, this is going to dominate my Steam Deck time. This is all I'm going to be playing. And then I first heard about this game written up in an Edge a couple of months ago, I think. They had like a little blip about it. I was like, oh, that seems right up my alley. You know, precision platformer meets Metroidvania with a cool graphical style, you know, pixel art thing that I'm just like, a Celeste? Hello. You know, like all of my tinglies were tingling. It very much had my name written all over it. So I bought it, downloaded it. I have not finished it. And to me, it harkens back to Metroid. not even Metroidvania, where the first Metroid, so much was left to player exploration and discovery, and you had an instruction manual, but there also wasn't the internet. And it was, or even the first Legend of Zelda. You know, that game, you had the map that came in your box, but there wasn't a lot of hand holding or telling you what to do. You were a kid out exploring the wilderness, and so you'd poke rocks or you meowed at a door 7 times, and it paid off a lot of times. And Animal Well does that also, where it is, you know, this ever-growing map, as you explained, 2D side-scrolling map that you find new areas, you can't get to things, but you think maybe you can if you could just do this, but why can't you because of that? But it's never telling you anything. It's never, you know, even in Ori, it's like, you know, like twinkle, something's taken, and you're like, okay, I got to work my way there. This game, so far, the, you know, handful of hours that I'm into it, tells you nothing. There's like a little glimmer off screen, and you're like, well, I guess I go that way. And the way it's approaching what has been shorthanded to the Mario 1-1 of game design, of letting you see something, explore, and figure it out, and try and fail, and then use those techniques later, is so satisfying. I've heard people describe it as a puzzle game, and I think, yes, that's accurate, but it's not like, oh gosh, what's that? You love it, the first person, you're on an island and you're going around solving puzzles. Witness, the Witness.
Witness, yeah.
It's not that, right? It's not
No.
that type of like.
But it is. You know, I'll do
Maybe
another
it lives
Jonathan
like-
Blow game. I'll do another Jonathan Blow game because I think it very much feels like Braid to me. It very much feels. I would describe it. It's interesting that you brought up like original Metroid, original Zelda, because I can see how you get there. But for me, it was like, this is Braid meets Fez. You know, it has very Fez vibes to me, where Fez just felt like this like infinite puzzle box that just keeps revealing new
Or a little bit
bizarre
of
ways to
Tunic, perhaps, where it's like,
Well,
this is familiar.
to me,
but
to just add another game in here, it kind of sounds like you're describing Outer Wilds in
A little
the
bit.
way that you kind of like, that game is about like basically learning the laws of physics of the universe, and then you can like use those to get through it. Is this the
Yeah.
kind of thing where if you knew how the game worked, you could finish it in like 10 minutes?
no.
You know, the kind of, okay, so you do
no,
have to like
you are
find
acquiring
items.
objects, and when you get a new item, the coolest thing is like we have whatever it is 40 50 years of game history dating back to those, you know, Metroids and Zeldas and et cetera, that sort of have established a vocabulary that is very well worn, you know, like the boomerang. We know what a boomerang does. It goes and gets things that are far away and brings them back to you. We know what the shield does. It reflects things off of it. We know what the magnet. One of the coolest things about Animal Well is it comes up with like a ton of just new objects that I don't think I've ever seen in a video game, but are brilliant. Like you get a slinky, and it's awesome what the slinky can do. You like are so thrilled when you use the slinky, and that's just one example of a myriad of just incredible objects that you will acquire that are necessary for you to progress, but feel like fresh ideas, feel like a revelation when you find them. And there are things that the game just starts revealing to you. And Christian, you are so right. And I'll never say those words in that order, but I do think you are so right that this game so eloquently expresses itself. Like it has those Braid or Portal moments of, oh, what? Yes, that's the solution. Amazing. It has that, for me at least. But it also just so simply, elegantly gives you the information you need without ever spelling it out. With just in the pure doing of it, you figure out, oh, that's what it's communicating to me. And now I have a vocabulary that I can leverage into later parts of the game, and that it just keeps building new ideas. And man, there's so many ideas in it that I've just, for a single person made this game, like I can't even wrap my head around how fresh it feels compared to like every other game that does the same exact thing that it does. You know?
And the ideas are complementary to each other in often ways where there are other games. Call of Duty is, I think, a single player campaign, a great example of a game that's full of ideas, famously full of different ideas. You have the night vision, then you're flying the plane, now you're manning the gun, now you're in this horrific environment, and whatever it is. And they're kind of all, you don't get enough of the one, you never use the one later in the other thing, you never bring the plane flying into the horrific mission. And what Animal Well does so well is building upon those learned lessons, even if you're implementing them in a slightly different way. And again, I haven't rolled credits in it, so I'm not sure if maybe, it all falls apart at the end or if it over explains itself. It gets to the end and it's like, his ring did fall over. And you're like, oh, I don't care, whatever it is. But I think the beauty in it in so many ways is also the unexplained and, dare I say, trippy nature of it, where like some animals or enemies that you encounter in this thing are like your size, but then others that would be that same size as this other thing is a very different size or interacts and moves in a different way. But
the central metaphor for the game seems to be like illuminating the darkness, and many of the puzzles are about turning lights on. And so I'm curious if any of that pays off, but it is, I think it's one of the most beautiful games I've played. Like the way the way it looks and the way it is animated is
and great sound too. Great soundtrack.
Yes. But like the way you sort of affect little parts of the world in ways that are not necessary for any kind of functional reason. You like, you could knock into lights and they swing and it changes the illumination. Except sometimes they are. Except sometimes they are. But you'll brush by, vegetation, and it's all like pixel art. It's not even pixel art that we've come to know as pixel art. It's like outlines of pixels. It's even simpler than pixel art. It's like very primitive almost, but complex and gorgeous. It looks different than anything I've ever played. It has more ideas. It's just this kind of lightning bolt of inspiration that I just, it's so rare to play a game that's like, my God, how did this one person did everything in this game, did the sound effects, did the music, did everything. How did they think so outside the box so often? So you'll often run into a great indie game that has this cool new concept, and then they iterate on it, and you're like, oh, wow, that really is a cool concept. I feel like this game has a dozen incredible concepts.
And this game is available on, I don't know the tier, but one of the PlayStation Plus tiers as well, if folks want to engage with it that way. My only nit is that you can't save anywhere. And I think this game could benefit from a Returnal style update later to give it that, because I understand the tension of the save points, but I do think in terms of being able to walk away, not needing to rely on quick resume, there are times where I feel like I'm a little farther from a save point than I would like to be, and I don't know where the next one is in terms of putting the game
or
down.
You can't get back to the one where it is. I'm literally, it's on, because earlier today I got really far and I did this incredibly difficult. I mean, the game is not, it gets hard. I don't know if you agree with that.
Some sequences are yes.
It's hard. And I did one and I was like, this is awesome. I got to this place. And I'm like, now I can't get, I can't save.
I got to go to IHOP. I can't keep playing.
Exactly. Anyway,
it's phenomenal.
Animal Well is incredible. Incredible. I just blown away by it. But the reason I think Totino's, I think what he was kind of pointing at was like, don't go in knowing anything, is because the game is so artful in how it reveals itself. in that you don't need to know anything. You can just start playing it and it communicates its vocabulary to you. I think that's really cool. That said, I think that put an expectation in my head that there was going to be some kind of crazy twist or something, which that's not the deal. That's not what's going on. It's just this elegant, kind of fresh take on something that you've probably played before once or twice. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think you could have some moments ruined for you if you watch it on stream. It might not capture the feeling of discovering the thing.
It's like watching Portal on a stream.
Yeah, I think Portal's the same way. Yeah, you're like, oh, that's cool, I guess. And then you play it and you're like, I'm a god.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, that's Animal Well. I am going to keep playing it. We'll probably talk about it again. I just can't believe this came from the mind of one human being.
You can get the full audio version of this show by subscribing to the RSS feed, which you can find at dlcpod.com. And you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dlcpod, where you will get ad-free versions of the show, video versions of the show on demand, and a whole bunch of extra content, like Wednesday's show, paid DLC, including spoiler chats, so much more. That's patreon.com/dlcpod.